Well, Coach Grubbs, our last chance to chat this year. Now that you've had a few days to reflect on last Friday's game with Farrell, what are your reactions?
I've watched a little bit of the film. Obviously it's a disappointing loss. We really wanted to put a push and have a chance at Sharpsville this week, but in the end, we didn't play terrible. We just didn't play our best game. We knew going into that game that we were going to have to play pretty well. Farrell's a very, very good team, as they showed on Friday night. And some of the mistakes that we've made throughout the year, we made again Friday night. And Farrell was just too good to be able to overcome those mistakes. Had we not turned the ball over a couple times in the first half, I know at one point in time I made a mistake on third down, called a different sweep than I wanted to call, and it didn't work out on third down. So, we all made mistakes, and unfortunately we weren't able to overcome them. But it doesn't, I don't want to say, doesn't take anything away from the year that we had. These boys performed fantastically through all 12 weeks of the season, and I couldn't ask for much more.
I think one of the things I was most impressed with as we got towards the end of the game, the outcome was pretty clear. And yet, I didn't see anybody quit.
No, and that was one of those things, we kept saying on every timeout and every chance we had that, that they didn't play the way they played the whole year just to give up in the last quarter or last two quarters of the last game of the season. So we just kept on to make sure that they were giving their hardest, giving their best efforts, and the kids really did.
Each year, we've taken a step up in the last 3 years. Playoffs in 2013, region champion in 2014, and this year, another region championship and a playoff win. You must feel like you're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. The biggest fear right now is the kids decide to rest on what they've done the past 3 years. We do have a lot of seniors graduating, and it's going to take some work and some effort to replace those guys that are gone. So we can't rest on what's happened in the past. We can't rest on the last 2 region championships. Our region's now dead and gone as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So we've got to make sure that we work just as hard for the next 9 months as we have every other year to make sure that we're in a position to do, the same things we've done the past couple of years. And if we don't work as hard, then we could struggle in the future. So we got to make sure as a coaching staff that we get these guys in the weight room where they belong. If they're not in the weight room, they should be playing something else. And that way, we have the success we've had.
This year, you'll lose 8 starters, most on both sides of the ball. I noticed that there are 8 juniors that will be seniors next year. As I looked at them at the banquet last night, I noticed that most of them are either now starting or see significant playing time. How bright's the future for Blue Devil football?
It all depends on how hard the kids want to work. They do. There are 8 juniors ready to walk in and step into those positions, and I think they can. I think they can do a good job. It's tough to replace a guy like Zach and Hunter, but there's some very capable people behind, and over the next 9 months or so, we're gonna find out exactly how dedicated they are and how much they want to step up and continue what we're doing. The coaching staff will be on them for sure from day one. I know we'll give them a few days off, but when we come back on Tuesday, the weight room will be open, ready to go. So if they're not playing another sport, then that's where we want them to be, because part of our success has been that off-season work, through other sports and through the weight room. So we want to make sure that continues and we can step up and continue our success next year.
I did notice in the preseason, a lot of the coaches from other teams recognized Cambridge Springs' hard work in the weight room off-season. That is a vital part.
Oh, absolutely. I think I've mentioned this in the past that, we've put the visiting teams in our weight room at halftime and such, and before the game, and there's been multiple coaches that have commented that, when you look at the weight, the record board for, all our lifts, our bench, our squat, and our deadlifts, and those guys are the ones on this field that you're playing that night, and the kids notice that too, and it can be, I'm sure it's a little intimidating when you see the running back that's coming out at you that night, benches well over 300 pounds, and the same with the linemen and the guys that deadlift 500 pounds, and so it's a huge part of our program. And that started a long time ago and has continued now, and we want to make sure that part of our program stays consistent, and that's part of what our success has been.
We do have those 8 seniors that are moving on to a new phase in their life. What advice would you have for them?
All I can say is, I hope they've enjoyed their time playing football here at Cambridge, and they need to take what they've learned here, the dedication it takes to succeed, the time that it takes to succeed, and hopefully apply it to everything they do in the future. I know some of them are probably going to go on to play college ball, or I know a couple of them may wrestle or play basketball, and I hope that their successes here can carry into those in the future.
I couldn't help but notice that all of the award winners last night were wrestlers, and almost all of them are starters for the wrestling team as well. Do you like to see your players in another sport?
I love to see our players in another sport. It doesn't matter if it's wrestling, basketball, just that competitive edge throughout the year. It's amazing when you have that. This year we hope for those guys that aren't competing in wrestling or basketball or whatever, volleyball in the springtime, we're hoping to get into some weightlifting competitions just to keep that competitive edge. I think you'll talk to most college coaches, and they prefer to have a well-rounded athlete. As much as I love to see our kids in the weight room and see them getting stronger, I know Coach Beach and I know Coach Kurt are getting them in the weight room in season as well. So the other techniques and the other things that you learn in the other sports, whether it's wrestling, look at a lot of our awards deal with tackling and everything else. What else can you say about wrestling than takedowns? And that's a huge part of it. But the footwork and everything else that you see in the defensive backfield and the running backs, carries over very nicely to basketball, and the hands in basketball and everything else. So, I love to see our kids play other sports. I prefer to see our kids play other sports. And if they don't, like we said, we're going to try and keep the competitive edge on them one way or another.
Well, today you begin preparing for the 2016 campaign. Looking in your crystal ball, what should we expect of the Blue Devils to look like next year?
Hopefully we look the same. It's hard to tell where we're going to be in terms of who we play in the region that we're in with the changes, but we're going to work hard just like we did this year. I don't expect to see a whole lot of changes necessarily offensively and defensively. We're obviously going to have a lot of shoes to fill with the 8 guys that are graduating, but with the young guys coming in behind them, I think we'll be all right. We have a strong junior class, a very strong sophomore class, and a lot of freshmen that are ready and looking to step up as well. So I look at it for us to be just as competitive next year as we are this year.
When we look to the future of the program, the JV team hasn't lost in over 3 years. The junior high team had a rough year this year when it comes to wins and losses, but I saw substantial improvement throughout the season, and I always say that that's what I'm looking for at that level. I think that has a lot to say about our future.
Yeah, the JV team has been great. I think they won 19 games in a row. And they do a nice job. Coach Beach and Coach Harrison and Coach Turner did a nice job this year with them. But it helps to, they understand what it takes to win. The hard work it takes to win, the dedication it takes to win. They don't necessarily get a ton of time in practice, so, step out there in the field on Monday nights isn't always an easy thing to do, and they do a nice job of it. So, those guys stepping in next year, a lot of them did get some playing time this year, so, I don't think they'll miss a beat. As of the junior high, we've talked about it before. They were a very young team. They only had 7 or 8 eighth graders, and a couple of those guys got injured early and were never able to play, which would have made a huge difference on that team, I think. And the 7th graders, a lot of them got a lot of playing time this year. When you're looking at starting 5 or 6 7th graders, on both sides of the ball against 8th graders, that's a tough competition. But I think you're right. I did see a lot of improvement throughout the year. And it seems like most of them had quite a bit of fun, and that's the important part. I told Coach Tapper and Coach Cummings and Coach Schaefer, the biggest thing I want is however many 8th graders there are this year, I want that many 9th graders next year. And the same thing, I want the kids moving on. The more kids we have, the better we're going to be. Part of the success this year in the varsity level is the fact we had 8 very good seniors, and next year we're going to have 8 very good seniors, and the year after that hopefully we're going to have the same number of 12 or 13 very good sophomores. The more older kids you have, the better off you are, because the longer they play together, the better they're going to get. So hopefully we can keep those 7th and 8th graders together. Hopefully we can keep them coming back. Same thing for the freshmen and sophomores, and that's what makes a good program.
Well, Coach, you're the general out there, but you have a coaching staff behind you, and while you're the guy that gets the credit oftentimes, or the blame wherever we are, you have a coaching staff. You want to talk a little bit about your coaching staff?
I said last night at the banquet, these kids don't understand how good they have it. These are guys, other than really Coach Turner, these are guys that really don't have a lot of kids in the program. They're not here for them, for their kids. Coach Turner's been here a long time, so I don't want to make it sound like he is there for his kid. He's been there, for the last 14 years, I think, long before Ty was even, considered. So, they're here because they love the game. They're here because they love the kids. They do such a fantastic job. I can't say enough about Coach Turner and the defense this year. I said it before, you'll notice when defense comes on the field, I go to the other end because I don't want to know what he's doing. It kind of scares me sometimes, but he's dialed it up and he's done a great job. Coach Beach, I can't, he's in my ear all the time in games, constantly telling me what we need to do, what we need to adjust. Many times those great play calls, they get those touchdowns aren't even necessarily mine. It's something that Coach Beach suggests. I can't say enough about the work that he does on our stats and our film and all that stuff as well. Coach Erickson has done an incredible job with the line. I think those kids love and respect him. And he truly, really loves the kids as well. He's done a great job getting them to communicate, getting them to come together as a line, and that's been the core of our team all year long. You don't run for almost 4,000 yards without big guys up front that are doing their jobs, and he did a great job with them. Coach Savitsky, Coach Marifine, can't be there all the time, but the time they do put in is crucial for us. The kids see them, they respect them, they know it, they know what they're talking about, and and then all the way down, you talk about the junior high coaches as well. They're there on Friday nights helping us out, getting to know the kids, and that's a great thing. And they did a great job this year with junior high. I'm blessed to have the 7 or 8 men that I have working with me, and I can't wait to work with them again next year.
I know each week I get an email from Coach Beach that provides stats, and he's been looking at the history. That's been a lot of fun to look at those stats this year.
He's a stat guy. He loves it. He really gets into it, and he's done it ever since he joined our staff a few years back with Coach Rauscher. He really enjoys it. He's really bought into the Cambridge Springs community's bought into the Cambridge Springs history, and he just wants to see our school and our programs become a success, and that's what he enjoys doing the stats for. Especially with this group, it's been a crazy group of kids in terms of stats and what they've done, and it's been fun to see. He does the same thing for me. I usually get the same emails with the same stats, and it's nice to see how the kids are doing, and it's I really appreciate the work he puts into Deena.
Well, I can tell you the fans have really enjoyed those this year. As we've posted those, as he prompts them, we post them. He really drives all of those posts.
Right, he does a great job, and it's a nice thing for the fans because you don't always get to see those stats until the end of the season, to see them going through and updating them. And it's something to be said for you guys too that keep them up on Twitter and Facebook and pass that along to the fans. It's a great thing.
Well, as they do every 2 years, the PIAA is going to make some changes to sections, regions. We've gone from 4 classes to 6 next year. How do you think that's going to affect the Blue Domes?
Right now for us, it's hard to say. We know we're going to be single A. We don't know what our region's going to be. We do know that besides us, there's 5 other single A teams in the area. Well, at least in the general area, I should say. Those include, West Middlesex, Farrell, Youngsville, and a couple other ones. So it's difficult to say. I know people have their opinions on it. I think it's a kind of a good thing for the most part. It's going to kind of I think help to level out the competition again. You're bringing smaller schools together. I use Farrell as the example. Now Farrell could probably compete at a lot of different levels besides single A. But when you look at their numbers, when they only have 81 kids, 9, 10, and 11 this year, compared to us where we have 140, that's a big difference in the number of athletes that you have to choose from. So you take a team, in a similar situation like Youngsville, who can't necessarily compete at that level. It's difficult to compete with a school that has 100 more kids. So in my opinion, I think this works out. Now, in some cases, it's difficult for some programs that maybe up, maybe down, that have to bump up. I look at Eisenhower and Sagertown and Maplewood that were very close to the cutoff, and they're ending up double A, whereas we were right underneath it and ended up single A. So it'll be interesting to see where things level out over the next month or so. I think teams have about a month to decide whether to stay at their level or if they want to bump up. And then I think it'll come January before they decide what the regions are actually going to be, and we'll get to figure out exactly who we play, and then determine who our non-region games are going to be then.
Well, Coach Grubbs, today's our last interview for the 2015 season. I want to thank you for taking the time to share this time with the fans. What would you like to encourage your boosters and fans to do in the off season?
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and doing this every week. I've really enjoyed it. The support this year has been fantastic through the boosters, through the fans, and that's what it's all about. Just keeping the kids in mind and what's best for the football program and the kids, and they've done that all season long, and I just hope to see it continue.
Well, Coach, as we end 2015 and begin the preparations for 2016, any last words for Blue Devil fans out there?
I just want to thank you guys for the support. It was another great turnout Friday night for our game against Farrell, and I'm looking forward to next year as well, to see the fans out, to see the support again, and cheer us on to another strong season.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well, Coach.
Thank you.